Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Victoria Rader from Virginia, just outside of DC. She is a possibility coach, transformational speaker, and the founder of You Too Shine. Links in the description below. We're going to get right back to her. First, my housekeeping. Please, would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. Get a t-shirt, coffee mug, buy me some whiskey for gaming. 14, soon to be 15. Currently available works of historical dream literature on Amazon. Also links in the description below. BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com. I never mentioned that. Anyway, that's my housekeeping. Back to Victoria. Good to talk to you. I'm glad we worked out those tech issues.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here. I mean, we could do a little camera nightmare dream, but we won't.
Oh, for sure. No, and that's and just so everybody knows, there's technical glitches with every interview. Everyone's computer's set up differently. They've never used Discord before. That's where I record these primarily. Sometimes I got to jump into someone else's thing. I was going to do an interview with the guy the other day on his Streamlabs because that was the way he was able to connect. And then I would just do my best to record it on my end. But anyway, so don't feel bad about that. You, Victoria, or anyone out there, if it happens, you're not wasting my time. This is what I do. It happens every time. So don't feel bad.
Great. I'm just happy to be here. I think we'll have a great time.
For sure. Well, tell me maybe a little bit about yourself. What is a possibility coach, and especially what is You Too Shine?
Yeah, I actually probably about a year or so ago, I had a branding coach who looked through my business and said, you do a lot of wonderful things, but kind of what is your title? And I said, I don't know. I don't have a title. And she said, well, why don't you kind of, find out in a nutshell how you want to be known? And what I did, I actually sent an email and posted a question for my clients. And I said, hey, guys, I've worked by referral for 2 decades. When you refer me out, what do you tell people that I do? Yeah. And the amazing thing that what came over and over and over and over again was, I was in immense debt and I didn't think it was possible for me to thrive and now I have money. I didn't think it was possible for me to be happy in the relationship and now I've been married happily. And one after the other, the circumstances were different, but the theme was I didn't think it was possible and now I have it. And so that's how Possibility Coach was born. It's a recent trademarked concept for my company. The company's been around though for about 2 decades, not quite. And what we do is we study subconscious and conscious blocks to people's lives that keep them from where they want to be. And then through different modalities, practices, and coaching, through our apps and books, we shift those. So everybody gets kind of do what you do. I told you, I think you're the richest person ever because your first phrase was, time is the thing I've got. I'd like for everybody to say that. Time is the thing I've got.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of branding, that's one of the first things I considered when I was doing this is like, well, people got to call me something. I could just be Ben the Dream Guy. And I'm like, well, what about, I like the concept of a wizard, a wise one, an old person that kind of seems to make magic happen. Really struck me as something that I've always looked up to in a way, or aspired to be. And I'm like, if that's a pretty cool name. And then I started looking around and there's like, lots of people use that phrasing in different ways. There's like a movie from the 80s about, dream wizards in the Freddy Krueger sense, fighting evil nightmares in their dreams. And there's, I think there's a band and there's some other businesses out there that do different things, but nobody was doing this. And I'm like, yeah, this is extremely niche, but I'm going to jump in it and see if I can make a name for myself. And got to call yourself something and have a title people can latch onto. So I think that's very important. Yeah.
Well, for me, the concept of the first association would be the Merlin. My mother-in-law had this beautiful drawing of Merlin, the wizard. And when she passed on, she left me that drawing. And of course, for me, he defines being the finder of the light, the definer of the light, if you will. And that's very tender to me because that's, in a nutshell, everything I work with. I work with the concept of light, however you look at it, energy of light, light, mood, whatever. And
Yeah.
so that's my first association with Wizard. My second one, however, was the Wizards as a team, because I'm outside of DC.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we have the Wizards here. They couldn't be bullets anymore, so now they're wizards. It's quite a transformation from bullets to wizards. But
It is that's a rebranding, literally. That brings two ideas to my mind. One is that, hopefully in my specific brand of wizardry, say, it would be bringing light to the darkness of the dream world, like trying to shine a light at relevant aspects that start to tell a story about what we're thinking about and telling ourselves as we're processing things in the background unconsciously. The other side of it is that I immediately thought basketball wizard. There are many kinds of wizards, and being a sporting wizard is not my strong suit. That would be so a wizard isn't perfect. It's not a god or demigod like position, just a human being with maybe unique special skills in a certain direction. They can really display some kind of a talent. But there are basketball wizards, and there are my dad's an engineer, designs towers, and the kind of person that makes a train bridge carry the weight of the train across a river. I consider them mathematicians. That's a skill I don't have. I cannot math. So.
Good, I'll be the mind wizard then. By that definition, today, for the purposes of our conversation,
Absolutely.
I'll be the mind wizard.
Well, like you were saying, you're a wizard of possibility and transformation. Those are very powerful concepts too, because they are concepts, and change over time is the thing that happens in the world, and doing it intentionally, identifying paths forward is tremendous for folks that just can't see too well. You're shining a light in the darkness of people's potential as well. That's good stuff.
You know what I found, Benjamin, and this is going to be interesting. I think it is easier, at least in my world, to get a person who doesn't see the potential to see it than it is to take a person who's blinded by the limited potential. To disassociate and release the addiction to what they think has to be, to see what can be. It's really amazing. It really, really is amazing, because I think the mindset poison that's so much out there is this phrase, "This is the way. That's how it is." And the second we say that, the second we put ourselves into a prison of, "This is how it's got to be," that is the less spoken of, and yet some of the most poisonous walls of mind imprisonment that I've seen. That's an interesting kind of concept to look at.
For sure. The immediate association I had was with the idea of, or the Buddhist concept of suffering. The idea that a lot of suffering is the disconnect between our desires and what is possible actually, or what is
attachment.
Yeah, attachment to these things, specific outcomes. I'll only be happy if I get X, Y, and Z. Maybe not, but I mean, if you don't end up with X, Y, and Z, and you've told yourself you can't be happy without it, you will be unhappy. So maybe you can find happiness with ABC instead, if you let go of that attachment. Yeah.
That's just it. So a person who's unaware, this is, where they say ignorance is bliss. Well, yeah, it's not, but yeah, it is. Because when you're unaware, you're unaware. When you're unaware of something better, you are unaware. And so you are in this apathetic state of stillness and peace and joy. The second you become aware, you become agitated. And so it's all about making that gap of, I want to match my potential continually. And how do I stay grateful and growing without becoming content or agitated? So that's the balance of all of these wizardly things of mind that we do.
For sure. Yeah. And then the thought that was inspired by that idea is this comparison we do that seems to have become worse in the social media age. We look at the best parts version, the staged, manufactured, crafted image someone places out there of perfection, and we go, I can't achieve that, or that gap between what we think we should be doing and where we are. That gap becomes full of that suffering and agitation, as you were saying.
Love it. I love that analogy. I actually quite a few months back, I have this. I have an online subscription group for people that are into energy work and conscious, subconscious stuff, like junkie. And it's called Quantum Freedom because we're looking to that. And I did an amazing program where we looked at what you're describing as appearance and substance. And that gap between appearance and substance. But then what I was shown was really cool is that in our I believe our biology is a form of our spirituality. It's just my little world. And so what I was shown is that just like our DNA is the substance of who we are physically, our RNA is the appearance of that. And if you think of the power that when they are not reflecting back to each other, the disease is born. And so it's not that appearance is wrong. It's just that when you appear to be something or someone you're not, you're crushing, you're exposing your spiritual self, your energy to the same disease. Anyway. So that's kind of what that triggers for me. Of being consistent with your appearance and your substance. As your substance grows and expands, have your appearance come with it. But the second you send your appearance as a messenger of something you're not, you're going back into that misery, into that gap of, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it is very important that too many people think they have to put on an appearance, and it's complicated with social stuff. There's so for me, we were talking about, I got the autism thing, and for me to be honest, I would have to say I prefer to be alone 99% of the time. I say it like this. I say, I would like to be invited to your birthday party because the expression that you wish me to be there, it means something to me. I feel it. I am not coming. I do not care for those social circumstances. No offense to you, but there's that social disconnect with me too. It's like, well, Ben's the guy that never shows up to my party. Does he really care? I do care. I just care from over here. I can't do the social thing. That's not my thing. So, so there's that disconnect in a way of like, there's this expectation of certain social rituals, perhaps that, I was going somewhere with that, that I could put on as a facade, but that feels disingenuous to me. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I was going to be me. I'm going to do my thing. And hopefully you understand. And if you don't, honestly, I'm not going to change anything. It's not my thing.
Love that.
Yeah. Well, just that honesty. Well, that's something too that I think, and it's tough. I was listening the other day, and there's, anything to too much of an extreme can be a problem. So radical honesty, when this one guy a researcher tried to live his life by radical honesty and just destroyed every relationship he ever had because he said exactly what he thought all the time without a filter. That, fair enough. That was his results. Maybe he just had a lot of negative things to say and people didn't care for it, and other people might have different results. But the other side of radical compassion, too much becomes enabling. There's like, I'm always looking for that yin yang balance of opposites. And it's not always directly in the middle. Sometimes it's a little more to one side or the other. But we can't become too extreme. We get out of balance. Yeah. In any direction. I was going somewhere with all that.
I think it happens. I think it happens for all of us when we mistake our way for the way, and we mistake our honesty for the honesty, and our compassion for the compassion. And as long as we're very comfortable understanding that what we think is honest could be a lie that is crafted through our judgment and limitation.
Yeah.
Then it really makes us all pause. Yeah. So, it's this is, I just had this session with my annual client, and we were talking about being guided and being right? Because that they're not the same thing. That very often you will get an intuitive answer and you will follow that answer only to come to a dead end and then go into the crisis of faith and go like, wait a minute, I knew I was guided. How come it's a wall? And to understand that that is intentional is a point of freedom. And the example I use is that, if you and I, Benjamin and Vika, are in the Jeep going through the jungle, a nightmare for both of us, by the way, a complete nightmare, but we're going through the jungle, right, in Amazon, and all of a sudden we come to a dead end, and we both whatever skills we have to tune in to the guidance, we say we feel we should go right. So we turn right at that not the dead end, the fork, the left and the right, and we go right. We drive right for about 5 minutes, only to come, I don't know, canyon, whatever we come to, it's the dead end. So we turn around in hesitation, going like, wait a minute, we were guided. We know we were guided. And we get back on that left side of the road, and now we stay on it hour after hour. And only 6, 7, 8 hours into it, we understand the brilliance of divine guidance. Because having come to the dead end, we never question that we are on the right path.
Mm. Yeah.
So being guided will slap us against the wall so many times. And to turn around real quick and say, ooh, thank you for the dead end. What was that other fork in the road? Yeah.
A lot of our suffering, speaking of that, comes from, these expectations that I shouldn't have hit a dead end. I made a mistake and that was a bad thing. What was the very famous quote? The guy says, I learn more from failure than I do from success. Because if you get it right, was it an accident? But if you get it wrong, you can look at it and go, oh, well, I know why that went wrong. It's a lot easier to kind of identify. Now, that doesn't mean you should aim for all the wrong answers first to learn best necessarily, but not to beat yourself up too much about, this inspired me as well, the idea of being guided. And I try to be very careful with people about the dream situation. So, and it comes down to the idea of as some of the books, speaking of which, my historical dream literature, a lot of these books I'm reading talk about the idea of morality in dreams and how we should look at things like, this is a go-to example for me. You dream, you stab your dog. In waking life, you love that animal more than life itself. You would never do anything to harm them. The dream is not telling you, oh, you have a secret wish to harm your dog. No, there's something else going on there. So I try to caution people not to look at their dreams as this is what you should do, or this is a prophecy for you, or this is your secret desire, you should follow it, but more like, here's what you were thinking about while you were asleep. Here's how you played out this imaginary, like we do it when we're awake. We go, I wonder if I call this girl, if she'll be home. I wonder if I say, hey, how you doing? She'll think that's a great intro. I wonder if I should ask her to we play out these different scenarios in our head of like, what if I do this? What if I do that? And in that process, we kind of figure out, here's what I feel most comfortable doing, most genuine for me, and what I think is most likely to succeed. So there's, we just call it making plans. But we daydream in our head that play out these scenarios. We even see it happen. And we do the same thing when we're asleep. So I'm like, don't take it as a guidance necessarily, but to focus your attention on what you were processing during that time to understand what you were thinking more clearly. So that's my rant.
Yeah, I love that, and it's interesting, the choice that you've made. For an example, I understand it was an arbitrary choice, but also know nothing is. I know everything is a part of a bigger picture. And, I've worked a lot with animal/human partnerships and healing. And animals absorb so much of our energy. And in case study after case after case study, very often an animal will carry the disease, and some of them even die from the disease that is rudimentary in the owner. And so I often say any and all episodes, whether insights, visions, or in your case, the dreams of you harming somebody or something, is just the understanding that either consciously or subconsciously there is an exchange, or where they absorb the energy. And animals very often absorb our anger, and they're just incredible. I have 3 dogs and a cat after my 2 sugar gliders died. So it is, so to me, that dream is very telling that, being guided doesn't mean guided to an action. Like you said, it's being guided to seek a further insight sometimes. Guided
to a better understanding in a way. Yeah. That's what I try to do with the dream thing is say, well, here's the scenario you were considering. Here's how you thought it might play out, or the how one thought spilled into the next in the chain of progression, and give that overview of what you felt or thought about that nocturnal experience as it was happening, and looking back on it, relating it to your life. Yeah. And very, very much hesitant to give people advice, to tell people here's what you should do. Like, just maybe I can help you understand yourself a little bit better, and that will become clear to you in that process in a way that doesn't require me to make pronouncements or give directions. Because I'm not you. I'm not living your life. I don't know what's going to work for you. I talk to people for anywhere between an hour and 4.5 hours. That's still not long enough to tell someone what they should do with their life. So I'm trying to be very careful about that.
Love that. No, absolutely. And besides, we're all love free agency. So the second we are told what to do, we are likely to do the very opposite. Because we value freedom over anything else, whether we know it or not.
Yeah. No, and that's a big thing for me too, is like, as much as I appreciate very, very deep thinkers offering insights and helping direct attention to things that might be important and possibilities as you do. What was I trying to say about that? It's like, we're building on that idea of I'm not you. I don't know what's best for you. It's like, also, I don't want to control anyone. I don't want to exert my will upon them in a way that makes them do something I want, whether I think it's good for them or not. I want to offer advice and say, maybe recommend against some things that might be dangerous, things like that, but not in the terms of like, I know best. I don't feel comfortable using, say, force or fraud, certainly lying to someone for their own benefit to get them to do something I think is best for them. I have pretty hard limits around all that kind of stuff. And I don't like it. I don't like the way it makes me feel. We all dabble in those things in the past of like, maybe this is the ethical course. And you go, no, that feels icky. I don't want to do that. That's wrong. And we realize why later and kind of commit to that path going forward.
Very much so. And I think, to me, probably the biggest lesson for me in my personal life, right, not in my professional life, is to really, really get it that inner knowing can have two absolutely different answers. I'll take the controversial topic of the vaccine. And to just have two people say, I know that I should take a vaccine, and the other one say, I know that I shouldn't. And monitor how it triggers you internally.
Yeah.
Do you trust that you might have been guided for a decision, and this human being that is equally equipped could have been guided to the opposite decision, and we don't know why, whether it is to create an equilibrium of spiritual growth and mental growth for all of us? We don't know why, and now we're okay not knowing why, to know that somebody who completely disagrees with you is equally guided, right? Once I found peace with that, the level of freedom that I've started experiencing internally just has been palpably nourished. Where I know what I know and I follow it, and somebody says, yes, but, and I go like, and it is the right thing for you, clearly. Maybe even if it's the wrong thing for you, it's the right thing for you now. Or maybe it's the wrong thing for me, but it's the right thing for me now. So yeah, I agree 1,000%. And I think it's the source of deep inner peace and freedom, not needing to save the world daily.
Yeah. And first recognizing you're just one person. You really can't. I mean, that's hard for some people to grasp. I think that they feel driven perhaps, or for whatever reason this is tough too, because you don't want to discourage someone's desire to do good in the world and to help people. That's one thing. But the idea of your involvement, your input, your direction, the specific outcome you want being the only way to save everybody from a horrible mistake, highly unlikely. You're one person with one set of ideas and one experience, and maybe don't try to reshape the entire world in your image. I like to look at it like,
if I'm not allowed to be God, I'm leaving, Benjamin.
What's that?
Since I'm not allowed to be God, I'm just leaving.
Right? I'm out of here. Forget it. I like to look at what I do as like, in a way, the analogy came to mind of like, I'm hopefully teaching people how to use a hammer. and what is a nail, that kind of thing. Then you decide what to build, but here's the tools and here's how they work. And now let your creativity and inspiration run wild in terms of how do you want to use these things to make your life better. So it seems what you're doing is very similar with the, and you do like live in-person lectures, like you speak to a auditorium or whatever. I know you mentioned beforehand, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but you're going on a tour soon.
The Israel trip is actually just a personal, joyful trip
Gotcha,
with two
fair enough.
men that inspired everything that I do. Greg Braden wrote a book, Divine Matrix, and Bruce Lipton wrote the book, The Power of Biology of Belief. I read those two books about 20 years ago, and combining the research and the insights that they had has put me on the trajectory of what I'm loving and doing now. It was taking, wait a minute, the energy patterns create the thought patterns, and the thought patterns actually palpably affect our biology. So these two separate men at that time, and then 10 years into that, they've started speaking and doing things together. Okay. And so I'm going to go for 3 weeks to Israel to look at the aspects of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and mysticism in all the sacred places, and see how those thought patterns or energy practices formed geopolitical and spiritual environment there. So this is my nourishing trip. I'm going to go and get thoroughly nourished and embarrassingly hang on those two men in gratitude and say thank you.
Give them cheerful hugs, yeah.
Yeah. So but I do love to travel. I, as I said, it's my, we all get nourished in different ways. And for me, traveling is one of those ways. So.
And for me, I'm a hermit. Travel is extremely stressful and not rewarding. Yep. So I stay home. But again, not giving advice. You travel, do it, enjoy it. That is your path. Two things came to mind while you were talking about that. I think I might have lost it. Both of them. It was a fascinating thing to hear in your story there, that 10 years before they got together, you realized there was a synthesis. And then eventually that actually brought the natural synthesis brought them together. And now they're doing things together. It's two people that independently wrote books, maybe didn't even know each other until they realized we're talking about a lot of the same stuff, and they overlap and they interact. And so you saw that actually like 10 years before it happened. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, I didn't think of it that way, but and I can't tell you that they haven't known of each other, but from my observing them, that's when they started doing things more and more together. And the last couple of years, they've started doing these travel seminars, actually. And so I booked it for 2019. And then, of course, we know what happened.
And everything happened. Yeah. Oh, it's terrible.
So it shifted to 2020, 21. And so I'm holding my fingers, toes crossed. Or, there's another year. It's all right, too.
For sure. Well, it came back to me. The second thing I was thinking of also is that you're visiting these sacred places, the roots of different religions. And a lot of that goes into the dream stuff, because not only practically does people's understanding of the world, their faith, their belief structure inform how their dreams play out and the symbols that are in there, but a lot of these ancient religions are recognitions of the archetypal and repeating patterns that humanity experiences in general. And so that shows up in dreams a lot too. And it gives us that foundation or framework for common understanding of some ideas. So as much as I say, if you dream about water, your dream might be different than my dream about water, but we have a basic concept of water. We can swim in it, things float in it, it's blue, or, different common human things go in water and they get wet. We can start there and then build on, okay, well, what type of water was this for you? I was going somewhere with that too. That might be it.
I love it. Everything in life means everything in life. Water is life and water is death, and you're somewhere on that spectrum, and hopefully your dreams tell you where you are.
For sure. And this is why I don't go towards the dream dictionary approach. Nothing wrong with them. If that's your thing, that's fine. But for me, I think it's much more personal, and you can't get a really good answer without really talking to someone. Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks highlighting the psychological principles which inform our dream experience and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, featuring the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com. But speaking of which, I wanted to, you were a little bit limited on time. I didn't want to run out of time for the actual dream thing. Did you want to get to that now? And we'll,
Yeah, and when you and I kind of exchanged a little bit, so there's, first of all, I am a dreamer. I don't think there is a night that I don't dream. I do a lot of lucid dreaming. I do a lot of purposeful dreaming. I use dreams to find solutions. I use dreams to manifest. And so, dream is a very big part of my reality. There are some prophetic dreams I've had for which I probably do not seek interpretation. They've been unfolding gorgeously, and we talked about it. So I really had to think deeply what would be the greatest value from this conversation for me. And I think the recurring dream that has come over and over and over again in different aspects is the dreams of falling and flying. And I can honestly say I have probably fallen and flown from anything and everything in my dreams. Sometimes, like in old dreams, I would be running away from somebody who's pursuing me. And I would run to the edge of either an abyss or a building roof or a canyon, and I would jump off, and then I would soar. Sometimes I just will see myself standing, and there's just this exhilaration, and there is like the wind that I fall into, and I fly. And so I think the pattern that my subconscious processes a lot through in my dreams is this flying in different ways. So that would be a fascinating topic for me to learn from you.
For sure. Do you have a most recent example, something that happened, one of these types of dreams in the last week or month?
I was flying on the dragons. My most recent one, I collect oracle decks. I love oracle decks. I rarely lean into them for anything but validation of the readings I have. And so one of my favorite ones is the oracle deck card. So I'm sure that has something to do with the vehicle in which I'm flying.
Possibly, yeah.
But that's been a fun thing. It's been just flying, and it's interesting. It's flying on the dragon and then flying without it and flying with a lot of like angelic beings and just the exhilaration from the flight.
Okay. And that was the most recent dream you had of that kind. So the process I generally do is I ask folks to kind of tell me the story of the dream, or at least the sequence of events. I'm flying on the dragon. You kind of did a little bit, but a little more detailed than that. The idea of I'm flying on the dragon, then I'm flying by myself, then I'm flying with angelic beings. Kind of how did that play out? Can you kind of give a brief narrative to it?
I don't know that there is a connection or a bridge. If there is, I don't recall it. I just that's the part that I remember where I'm first flying on the dragon.
Sure.
And then as it gets higher and higher, I find myself flying kind of by myself and still going higher. I don't see the dragon anymore. And then different colors come and different lights come. And trying to restructure it in my mind.
Yeah.
And then these beautiful for the lack of a better word, like angelic beings that are just very radiant. And then I fly to, I can give you the whole thing. And then, so we go to this kind of the height, and I come to this beautiful, beautiful temple-like structure. It appears to be all like crystal. And I'm in one of the rooms, and I understand that I've flown up and back into the time before I came here. And then I don't remember. I know I'm there to receive something, and I think that's when I wake up. Like I'm there to receive something, whether it is the knowing or I don't know, but I'm just like there to receive something. And then I woke up. So that's the most recent dream.
Okay, good enough. Yeah, absolutely. What we got there? It's 2:36. Okay, so that's basically step one. I just listen, let you kind of work through your mind. What are these images I saw? What order did they come in? And then we go through the part two, which I think is critical. It's like the actual dream work. Going through it and trying to put me in your head, looking out your eyes as much as possible and experiencing it so I can kind of make good suggestions. So we begin at the beginning. So you're on the dragon at the beginning already. And so you don't have any memory of climbing onto the dragon that takes up into the sky. Okay.
No, it's a red dragon for what it's worth.
I was going to ask. So you do dream in color, because you mentioned colors. A lot of people don't. Fair enough, where that just doesn't stand out to them. I think there's an overlap, there's a tangent with folks who dream frequently, remember their dreams frequently, and have lucid dreams. That they are you kind of combine all three of those, and most of those folks see dreams in color. I think, if I have that correct. But so there's something about that, and just dreams in general. Like I don't even very often remember that I had a dream. I do use it the same way you do, in terms of I sleep on it. That's a powerful phrase. That is advice I will give to everybody. If you don't know what to do, sleep on it, because you'll go to bed and you'll continue to have thoughts, and something will happen. And I very often wake up the next day with like, I know what I want. I know now what I think is the best course forward. And you can't force inspiration like that. But if you kind of shut off the external world and let it percolate, as I say, you get a lot of great answers. I was going somewhere with all that too, but anyway, back to you. So I was going to ask, what do you see? What's the color of the dragon? What kind of dragon? It would be maybe the next question. Now, what size relative to you? Is this ginormous, or is it kind of just big enough to ride on like a horse?
It's not ginormous. If I had to do like the proportion, the ratio, I'm probably the height, the length of its neck. So let's say I'm like 1/5, 1/6 of its size lengthwise, if that's helpful.
Sure.
So it's large, but it's not, overpowering.
Yeah.
But I'm 5'3". I'm
Sure.
half the size of some people.
Yeah. Well, and here's the interesting thing too. Why do I ask these kind of things? What does it matter? Maybe it doesn't, number one, but it wasn't a cartoonish tiny dragon and you're barely precariously perched and it can barely fly because you're too big. No, this is a kind of a classic. It also wasn't a Godzilla sized where you're just a speck on its back and it's taking you somewhere. It's not even like you're riding it. You're just existing like a flea. Those are different things. This is more of a classic idea of, you would imagine, if I am riding a dragon and I am the rider, it's got to be large enough to carry me, and dragons are big, but it's not, it's more, it's like made for a human to be, it's made for me to be riding it and actually maybe be in control of the journey in a way, or in partnership with the dragon in a way that those other two don't represent. So this is where my brain goes like, what are we dealing with here? Okay. That kind of an image. You said it was red. Any particular shade of red, or does the red that you see connect to anything in your mind? Anything?
probably connects to the cover of my most recent book.
Oh,
It's kind of it's not burgundy red. It's more like classic red. You know, like what would it connect to my mind? Really, just the color of probably prosperity, the root chakra. But it's yeah, those are the associations that come in.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that may or may not be relevant. We're starting to build a picture of like, what did this look like? What does it make me think of looking back on it? And some of those spontaneous things, like it was kind of the color of my book. I'm like, bam, that's okay. That's something. I don't know what it is, but that's something. I kind of get those feelings too. Do you recall seeing anything below you? Were you flying over landscape at all?
The stars, like the stars, lots of like the universes,
So
more of the
your
universe
vision was mostly
in
directed
the
upwards.
space.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly in the space and going through spaces. Hmm.
And no visual impression of landscape underneath you at all.
Well, of course, my brain does something now, and we don't know whether that's accurate or not, because our
Sure.
subconscious will answer what we. Because I go back on the dragon now, and I look down. This is what's happening in my brain. When you ask that question, I go in my mind back on the dragon, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm looking up. Let me look down. So I look down, and as I look down, now I see the lake. Now, can I tell you that it happened during the dream or not? No idea. I'm just telling you that's what's happening now.
No, for sure. And there's this, speaking of my dream books again, there's a concept that people that the dream we tell is not actually the dream as it happened. It's what we put together logically afterwards. There's some validity to that in a way. But there's also retconning things into it. The longer we go from that, the more we remember, which may not actually be there. But there's another theory. It was all there. And now in your mind, you look down, there was a lake. There was always a lake. Maybe. Because you're uncertain. I tend to, when people go, I don't know, I'm like, okay, well, maybe we'll set that aside. Maybe it's not as important necessarily. But it isn't, again, this is where I start putting these little carrots in there. The dragon's flying up. Your vision your initial impression of it was, I'm very focused on the upward path. Like you didn't volunteer that. Yes, I was very much concerned. What am I flying over and where am I going to land? It's a different experience of it. So you're definitely in the sky. Do you remember passing through clouds or anything, or actually like leaving the atmosphere and going to space?
Mm-mm. I don't. I just remember flying upwards. That's the association that I have the most, and like and then just seeing, like flying through space, like cosmos space, seeing the galaxies, and just, it's always this consistent feeling of exhilaration. So that's probably the most dominant feeling that I have when you ask it. So I don't remember the clouds or breaking through, or just remember flying.
Okay. And
now we've put a lake in, so we don't know how that lake made it through all the space.
Right? It may be, again, it's one of those things where like, oh, that's a thing. We'll see. Sometimes we give elements and we never find a place for it. Maybe it didn't mean anything. Maybe it was something that you're not ready to look at because you're in doubt of whether it was even there or not. Or it's a retcon and these things happen. Do you remember any, stay on the dragon a little bit longer. Do you remember feeling the pulse of the wings, or any other, did the dragon roar, did it shoot fire for fun? Any kind of behavior from the dragon itself? Did it look back at you or acknowledge your presence at all?
No, it was pretty much just flying upward. The wings, it's funny now that you've mentioned dragons have wings, and mine was not flapping it. Flapping, I mean, it was just like,
maybe that'll be my Western-centric question. Chinese luck dragons just slither through the air. They have no wings, so it could have been more like, more like
So it's fascinating because the dragon was not, I was on the dragon, but the dragon was not mechanically involved in flight. It's like I was on the dragon, but both the dragon and I were carried upwards. Like, so that's a fascinating insight.
Yeah.
There's a big difference, I guess, between flying and being flown. We were being flown.
Yeah. No, that's why I ask these questions where it's like, I don't even know what doorknobs I'm rattling or why. This is my intuitive thing of like, why does that matter to me? I don't know. Let me ask it and see what happens. So
very cool.
And so we've gotten down to this idea now of, and then I start putting it together with say, okay, maybe if there's a relationship to your book, it's, if we go with a theory that this dragon is your book and the success of your book is carrying you upwards, you're actually conceptualizing that no, it isn't me or the book, it's something else carrying both things to greater heights. So it's conceptualizing it very, very differently. The dragon's not actually doing the work, so to speak. Neither are you, technically. Very interesting. And I think that connects very much with your idea of, I would say, like, not fate in a fatalistic sense, but in these spiritual forces that move us, hopefully, towards the positive. So there's all of this stuff starts coming together in my mind. And if it makes sense to you, then we're on to something. Otherwise, we just keep going and see what happens,
No, I love it. I love it. Yeah, moving through you, moving you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you remember, one of the reasons I was asking the movements or motion of the dragon is to try and maybe key up a connection or a transitional point between I'm flying on the dragon or with the dragon, and then there's no more dragon. It's just me. Did you remember that moment or any?
I don't remember. There isn't a point of aware disappearance of a dragon. It's not like I go like, oh poof, the dragon is gone. It's just, it's the next point of awareness where I am still flying and the dragon is not there. And now the blank that my mind is filled in for is now the dragon went back into the water and is splashing there as we speak. So I'm very happy for the dragon. I just awarded dragon a happy ending in this awake state.
Yeah, why not?
While I'm continuing to soar. So yeah.
So had you actually reached the flying through space, cosmos, galaxies on the dragon, or is that the scene where flying alone began when you reached space?
The space as I remember to perceive it is that it is all kind of a cosmic universal space, and then I am in more of a radiant space, kind of. It's just like I said, it's many colors, I guess, or so it's more of a surreal presence than it is like astronomical presence. It's just open space. It looks really beautiful, like iridescent. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and it was in that space that you were suddenly by yourself. There is actually kind of a transition there. There's this like reaching towards the stars and flying on the dragon, or you're both being flown in that direction. But once you get to a certain space, the dragon fades away or disappears, becomes unnecessary or irrelevant to the next kind of conception you're kind of building in your mind there. Did you have a sensation of motion, still elated, and what was the word used for it earlier? Exhilaration? Or was the feeling different now?
It was a deeper feeling of fulfillment and peace. Like still continuing upward momentum. What comes is so cool. A while back, I was driving to, I have a home also in North Carolina, and my husband and I were driving down there. And I was going over all these things I was doing for my business, and I kept saying, I'm so excited, I'm so excited, I'm so excited. And he said, honey, you're not excited. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you're enthused. What do you? And and so it's interesting. I think that was probably the shift. I was very excited to be flying on the dragon, and I was enthused to be in that space where it wasn't a biological excitement and thrill. It was this, just that's how I think it would feel, like this sense of fulfillment and peace, and yet the thrill of continuing to fly. So.
Okay. And it was, did you have a sense of the time passing in that space and forward motion?
Upward, but no time. Upward is not the right thing. It was it was the deepening sensation. It was going deeper into this presence. That's the better word.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. And it was, I don't want to go there yet. Any sense of, you say space and colors. So it was in a way a physical environment, but when you say colors, you mean like it's as if the stars got brighter and closer, or the colors were swirling on each other? It was like clouds. How would you kind of describe the behavior of the colors or how they represented themselves?
It's more that I know they're there than I observe that they're there. What I'm observing is just a sparkling light, but I'm aware that it's all the colors. It's interesting. It's, if you look at the white color, right, at the iridescent white color, it is the presence of all colors. And so I think I'm aware that all colors are there, and it's what's coming in now is that I'm at the source, I'm at the origin, I'm at the beginning, beginning is not the right word. Just source feels better. Source resonates better. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. Well, that's why I asked. What did you see? I was seeing the source. Done. That's why I asked. So was it in this space that you saw then the temple, or had you crossed through that space into a new space?
So in that space, then very clearly it was both these gorgeous, beautiful beings. Well, they're human-looking beings.
Oh, that's right. I forgot the beings. Yeah.
Yeah, they were there. They surrounded me. Some of them I recognized as my ancestors. And it's interesting because as I talk, I can see they were like in the back. They were like surrounding. And some of them, I know that I know them, but I don't know how I know them. And those are the closest to me. And so as they surround me, there's like this. So like I'm in this space, like I'm advancing, deepening, and I come to a point where they surround me. And as they surround me, and it's not threatening surrounding me, it's a very supportive feeling of being surrounded. There's this path that lights up, like, in the middle of nothing, there's a path that lights up. So middle of everything, I guess. And so that path, I don't remember walking it. I don't remember moving on it. I just know that I find myself in this gorgeous crystal looking temple / room, and I'm there to receive something. So.
Okay. So your experience of it was, you're in the space with and I love that iridescent white thing. Cause if you look at like, say I don't know if it's a pearl pearl type of thing, but you can look at it if you turn at different angles. Like you could see all the colors are there, but it's white, but all the colors are there. And it's this, yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that. Then you're surrounded by these beings that feel, initial impression was angelic, but then you realize it's actually like ancestors. You feel a familial connection to them, like stretching into the past. And there's this surrounding in a non-threatening way that is very much like an embrace, in a way, so supportive, you said. So, it's like people group hug in a way. And somehow that experience is what illuminates this path. And you don't remember walking the path, but suddenly maybe transition into now you're in a room, but the room is like, so you didn't see yourself following the path and there's a temple and then you enter a door and now you're in a room. I'm in a room, but the room is in a temple.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's once again, is that concept of knowing that, okay, that's where I am. I don't have the method of how I've gotten, but that's the next image that's there. And now I'm there.
Yeah. And that's what I tell folks too. Seeing something in your dream and knowing something in your dream are exactly the same, because you're not really seeing anything. So anyway, you get the idea. Yeah. You say crystal. I have maybe a concept of that, but, any particular kind of crystal? I mean, rose quartz or like a geode, all the walls are spiky, like
just here. Well, I have one. You'll tell me what it is.
Sure. Yeah.
Just a clear crystal. That would be just a clear crystal. It's one of my many crystals here. So that would be nice. Just a clear, but very, very clear. Like this one is a little bit smoky. So I think it's like a smoke quartz.
Gotcha.
But we're looking at like clear crystal.
Okay. Good deal.
So not polished, shiny, but just this kind of a same formation, same feeling to it as the space. Like if you could take that iridescent light that is the source of all colors and give it a physical structure, that's what that structure would be. And so in my mind, I'm describing it as crystal, but it's like taking that feeling of presence and putting it into a physical structure that I could associate with would be that crystal.
Nice.
Place.
That's beautiful imagery too. A lot of times I just love hearing these dreams. I'm like, that's amazing. I wish I experienced that. I'm doing it the best I can from looking out your own eyes. Any sense of the scale of the room? It's tiny. It's cathedral size, huge vaulted ceilings.
This is really bizarre. I know I'm in the room, but I don't remember the walls or the size. I remember there is what is it called? Like an altar kind of a thingy.
Okay.
So in the middle of it, I don't know that I know it's a middle, but it feels like it's in the middle. And I'm literally like, I don't know whether I'm reconstructing, whether remembering, which I guess is highly relevant, but I see myself kneeling at the altar. And, maybe receiving a blessing through the laying on of hands, or receiving, this is where the dream I wake up. I'm just with the certainty that I'm just there to receive, and I'm waking up.
Yeah. And that may be very relevant to this whole experience. And that's, so you're raising a very good point that I don't think I've thought of with many other dreamers in the past, of like, I just ask them questions and they say, now that you think of it, it feels like I was there to kneel and I was going to get a blessing and a laying on of the hands. And you're actually highlighting, I don't know if I'm just making that up now because it makes sense to me. Why would I be there? My mind invents something, or I'm recovering an actual vision from my dream. In the past, I've tended to think these are the gaps that kind of slump between the highlights that pop out when we're telling the dream initially. And if we go back through it a second time, a lot of this stuff fills in. And so have I been eliciting from people false memories? I hope not, but but I'm glad you brought it up. Just that possibility makes me think, if you're not sure, and certainly I tell people this too. If I ask you a question, don't make something up. If you're not sure, you say, I don't know. I don't know what color the dragon was. The dragon didn't have any color. Fair enough. That's what you experienced. So my general practice in the past has been to say, yeah, probably these filling in the gaps moments probably did happen in some way. Unless you're really unsure, then we leave it out. I don't know. It all depends on how you feel about it. Whether you're confident enough to say, I think that was something I saw, or maybe not.
I think what you're helping me connect with beyond the dream is that the dream is just the message of the subconscious. It's one of the many methods of the messages in the subconscious. So I really believe it becomes highly irrelevant what fills the gaps and how to complete the message from the subconscious.
Maybe so. Yeah, that's a fantastic
once
point.
Again, that's just my little, right? It's back to, is this right for everybody? Probably not. But in my little internal world, that's what resonates with. Then it's like, if I were to ask you, Benjamin, what color are you thinking about? You're not thinking of any color, but the second I'm going to ask you what color you're thinking about, you're going to say blue, or whatever color.
Blue.
There you go.
That's the color. Before you said it, I was about to tell you.
I'm just intuiting a color, right? Or the number. Like, you have 7 chakras open, you probably would be 7. Like, that's your powerful energy, blue 7, whatever. So the questions bring us to the answers, but I think those answers are within us. So does it really matter if I'm filling them up to the dream?
Why not? Yeah,
I don't care.
That's
I'm having a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, as long as you're enjoying it, and I don't want it to be an empty enjoyment. You get nothing out of it, but I also want it to be a mind expanding, understanding, granting experience that is also fun. That's the win-win right there. Okay, before I make any suggestions or point to anything or ask more questions, going through that again the second time and picking out filling in some of those gaps, do you have some insights on the dream in general and why you think it might have happened? I like to just stop and ask people before I fill their head with my own nonsense.
Yeah, the phrase that came through when you were framing this last question, that's just so bizarre, but the phrase came through, I'm not hungry anymore. That's the phrase that came through. It's bizarre. It's that I'm not hungry anymore. And it kind of makes me emotional now, when I say that, like deeply emotional actually, because now I think, I'm Ukrainian. And I think of the millions of people that were starved. I don't know how it relates at all, and of the war, the hunger for freedom. I think of my hunger for freedom. Like, everything is being put into these gorgeous little, I'm shown now, what is it, like a honeycomb, and like the honey's being poured into all of these little individual cells of, I'm not hungry anymore, and what it means on a genetic level and ancestral level and passion level. And this is probably the most meaningful conversation I have ever had with anybody, Benjamin. And I have had thousands of very meaningful conversations. Thousands, not hundreds.
Wow. So you're really feeling it. Something's happening for you.
Yeah. And of course your cat is here, so I'm an animal person, so yes. Oh, the kidney. We got to do a kidney healing for that little guy.
He's feeling what is it? He was feeling a need to come and comfort me. Something was coming through here. He's like, I'm here, buddy.
He's come for a little kidney healing there. So we're just going to do a little kidney healing for him. Left kidney.
I hope so.
Sweet little guy.
Boy. He's such a sweetheart.
He is a sweetheart. Yeah, he's your little hard buddy. He is your hard buddy.
He's the guy that ate my episode number 8. He stepped on the keyboard.
Oh,
And I love him.
yes.
I
Say, I
love him
know what I'm
anyway.
doing. Say, I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing. If the energy gets a little too deep or too heavy, I need to take care of my dad, or he's going to come take
Yeah.
care of him. So you're all taken care of.
He's there's a lot of people, you go out and get cats. You go find a breeder, or you go to the shelter, or you stumble across one on the street. That happens. He ran across the street out of nowhere as a juvenile already and jumped into my wife's lap. I thought it was me, but now I think I'm putting myself in the story. I think it was her, and she just took him inside, and he's lived with us ever since. He came and showed up and said, I live with you now.
Guess what? And guess what else he's saying? I'm not hungry anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Well,
What's his name?
This is Prince.
Prince. Oh.
Well, okay, so there's a story behind that too. We had a little niece, and she named like half her cats because she would just, what was it? She was listening to Justin Bieber when she was like 3 years old, and so she was learning the word baby, baby, baby. Oh, and she looked at this new young cat we'd gotten, and she said, "Oh, baby!" And so now that cat's name is Baby, and she named another cat Princess because she was into Disney princesses at the time. It's like, oh, she's like a little princess. Well, that cat is a tuxedo cat as well, female. And when he showed up, we're like, Prince. We already have a princess, so now we have a prince. That's the story of his name, where he got his name. There you go, buddy. But I was going to say, bringing the focus back to you, the idea of hunger is a very powerful concept because we relate it biologically, and we know it's deep in our bones and our DNA that we've had periods of starvation in our past. When we were hunter gatherers, it's literally feast or famine for a lot of that stuff, and that's such a powerful metaphor for our life. We have a hunger for food. Physically, we need it. We will die without it. But also, we have a hunger for achievement, for learning, for connection with other people. There's so many types of hungers. And that's where a lot of this psychologists, going back to Freud, they talk about desires, urges. There's a million drives, not a million, but several dozen maybe ways of describing this vital energy or whatever it is that moves us forward and makes us want to accomplish things. So the idea of reaching this temple through this process, and something about the process that gets you there that's important too, which is related to the meaning of the dream, but something gets you there, and you're there to receive something. And what you now realize, looking back on it, what strikes you as so powerful is, this journey and reaching the destination and not even knowing, not even being given anything specific, but having your hunger satisfied by arriving there. There's something in there. I don't know if you are having more thoughts about that.
No, I'm just feeling very blissful. I think my little anandamide is being released into the bloodstream. I'm just very blissful to kind of be like, yeah.
That's good. Sometimes you just got to sit with that feeling. I have a hard time sitting with feelings. I'm always a little distractible and moving on to the next thing and the next thought.
I have a solution. Just get on a dragon tonight.
Right? Maybe I will.
You have, if you choose to follow or not.
Yeah.
But it's there.
So for you, there is sorry, buddy, I need my notes. Let's see. I'll use you as a book holder. So there's probably something going on with this story of, and what is it? I can ask people specifically, but there's general concepts of elevated things, the high being better than the low, the up, moving upwards, a sign of progress, attainment, gain of some kind. Whereas, we think of sinking as, so general positive and negative associations with these things. And usually, I can't say usually, it is a common conception that might bear relevance, but the idea of leaving Earth, the strictures of Earth, even an earthly realm, by a process of rising towards something, towards enlightenment, towards beauty, that then it's all symbolic of like attainment of understanding of things. The idea that heaven is above Earth. that kind of a thing. It's very broad concepts there. So you've got these images of you on this journey, and with your dragon that might be your book, maybe not, maybe it's but the idea that it isn't, what am I trying to say? The dragon isn't carrying you, the dragon's being carried with you. It's a almost like a companion, an accompaniment rather than a vehicle. And that then did you, so if we look at that way, when did you write your book? How recently was that written or completed?
The book was released June 27th. So the last book that came out, that came to mind because it's a red book.
So it was just this year, a couple months ago.
Yeah, just a couple months ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Do you have a unique experience of that process? Was this book different than others?
Yes, I was not in control of writing it. It was written through me versus me writing it.
You were carried somewhere by something.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Very much so.
And maybe that is what came to you in the dream in that representation of being, I feel that way too. I feel like what I'm doing here now with you, I have no idea where these associations come from in my mind. Why do I ask these questions? What inspires me to do that? No idea. So I feel very often like, and this sounds faux humble, but like a vessel for something else. It's a spooky woo way of looking at it for a very scientific psychology guy like me, but nobody knows where ideas come from. Inspirations. The Greeks said the muses. So who knows? So I get exactly what you're saying with that process. I think it's the same thing with a lot of artists in general, not just writers, but where does the inspiration for a song come from? The melody, the chorus, the lyrics pop into someone's head like it always existed. So that resonates with me very much. That's my experience of it.
Yeah.
And so there's this process that you feel like you were carried through by something. You were just moved. And it's also a very powerful metaphor too, the idea of being moved. We think of our emotions moving us, but it can also be our desire to accomplish something virtuous that moves us, inspired. But the idea of feeling you are not moving, you are being moved. And it brings you to this iridescent place of all color. Not just the rainbow, but that concept of, the light and the dark. So the darkness is basically just absence of light, it's absence of illumination. As we say, it's something's missing. It's an emptiness. And on the opposite side of it is a place of complete light. No part missing whatsoever. It's feeling to me like there's some kind of representation of you having accomplished this creation, letting it move through you, and then seeing maybe where it took you from there or what it has brought you to. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
I think the biggest insight going through the dream with you while we were doing it was that shift of excitement to enthusiasm, or for the lack of better description. It was more of, this is so fun and now I'm full of joy. So that's probably the shift. And so that came to mind as you're talking about dark and light. And I think that, dark is only being the lack of light, sometimes proposes a lot of fun things that keep us away from joy. But if we move through them, maybe we are, at least that's what's coming through. And so dark is a beautiful vehicle of finding the light for all of us, I think.
Can be, sure.
Yeah, can be.
Yeah. And it isn't all bad or good necessarily. And that's why it's very, very important to ask these things or communicate with someone and say, well, what is your conception of light and dark? And so I've gotten some nuance now. The darkness can also be mystery, and solving a mystery can be fun. Actually, that's what we do with these dreams. We go into the darkness and we try and solve the mystery by bringing light to it. But that doesn't mean the light is good or the darkness was bad necessarily, but definitely you can't have the discovery process of illuminating the darkness unless the darkness is there in the first place. So it kind of serves its own purpose in the journey. And for you, it was moving through this space where everything is brightly illuminated. Like it's all there's a completeness. It feels like to the, that's why I keep doing the circle gesture. Like everything feels like it's complete.
I can see that you're doing the wholeness. You're like, yeah,
I keep doing it. I can't stop.
That
That's
as
why
well.
when I'm trying to wiggle ideas loose out of my head, I do this one here. Like just pull it out like a hair. Okay, boo-boo. And it was that then takes you to this temple place. And we haven't really talked too much about your concept of temples. Was this dream possibly related to booking your journey that's coming forward? Was that on your mind at all when this happened, or not a possibility yet? Just something that came to my mind.
Going back to the knowing, right? I cannot tell you the source other than the knowing that I received is that I had a glimpse into something that might have occurred before. My essence, my energy, my spirit, however, I describe it as a spirit, I guess, but that's that energy, a part of me that's eternal before it takes physical form. Like to me, it was a feeling of it actually having happened at a time before I came to this earth. That was just the feeling that I've received, that I wasn't, like the irony of it all, looking at it is that it's like I was flying towards something to be giving a glimpse of what was. And knowing what was gave me a whole new feeling of being present. It's like being present versus striving. I think that's that feeling. I'm not hungry anymore. It's shifting from striving to presence, and that it is not limiting, that it is just, it's not limiting. It's just a new way of continuing to expand and to be whole.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do, of course, is just identify each discrete element and kind of how it might relate to you, why you would conceptualize something in that form. So maybe this temple is kind of like your go-to representation, not go-to like every time, but in this context, where would this journey be taking me? It would be taking me to a center of spiritual importance, I would say. Like, what is a temple? It's kind of a place of that, if that makes sense to you. We can go with
maybe connection. I think temple is, to me, is a place of deepened connection. However it is, if you can ascribe to the temple being, to the body being a temple of the spirit, and the physical temple being the connection with the divine, however you look at the temple of the brain, that's the connection to the thought process. I think it's the place of deepening the connection. If I had to say, what is a temple? My first, response, that is, well, probably my first response probably would be the place of God, but the second response would be a place of deepening the connection.
Yeah, and there was actually some of that kind of a language in there too. Well, my handwriting's awful, but I did write something like that down as well, I thought.
Yeah. The altar was there.
Yeah, for sure. And that you were there to receive a blessing, at least the feeling of that, looking back on it, like that kind of feels like what I was there too. And that blessing ended up being a fulfillment because what is, like we were talking about this before, trying to conceptualize it, what is hunger? It's the essence of it is something is missing. And literal hunger, what is missing is food, empty belly. But it can also be unsatisfied desires for connection with people, unfulfilled plans to achieve something. So all these things of like, and it's a weird dichotomy as well. Like the light and dark thing is like, if there's no hunger, there's no reason to achieve anything. So you kind of, it's almost like it exists. It's a good thing that it exists to be fulfilled. Because without it, it almost seems like there is no journey possible. Weird weird things like that pop into my head, like the universe being structured in a particular way on purpose. I don't know. I'm not classically or Christian or anything like that, and my concept of God, shall we say, is more of the deist conception of like, well, whatever made this universe, okay, that's God. I don't know what it is. The only way we can know it is by trying to understand ourselves and what's around us as best we can. That's how we get to know God. So I'm always looking at these, better ways of understanding. Hopefully someday I'll have, I don't know if I want that hunger satisfied though. That's one of those things where it's like, as long as it exists, I got something to do. I got something to chase. Maybe I need small satisfactions along the way, little snacks here and there, feeling like I've got something going on. Otherwise you'd lose motivation for the journey. I'm going nowhere.
Oh, you don't have to, right? Or I'm going to ask, what is there to motivate me that is greater than hunger? That is the question I'll be pondering on as a result of this conversation.
That's a good
now
one.
Now that I got the answer, you're not hungry anymore, then my question will be, what is greater than hunger that is to motivate me forward? That's what I'm getting out of it.
I don't have an answer either. Yeah, no, that's great. No, also what you said too was, I think, very powerful as well, is like, it was as if you were being shown what was. And that struck me too, because it's like sometimes it goes back to the idea of learning from mistakes as well, because sometimes the only way to figure out what the heck just happened is to go, wait a minute, let me turn around and look where I walked, watch my own path to try and understand myself better. And that's where we get that understanding from, is that looking back. So that actually might have been what you were doing in this whole dream, was looking back at yourself and the journey you've come through. And it's like, it might have even started, dreams are weird like this still. And I've said this, like, I haven't said this in over a year, but they can be Pulp Fiction style. Like they can be out of order, and things at the end actually happened at the beginning. You may have started with this idea, I'm not hungry anymore. And you go, where the heck did that come from? And that exploded in your mind as, well, I was on a dragon and I went through the iridescent colors and I ended up at the temple for a blessing. So you kind of answer your own question of looking back on the path, how you feel like you arrived where you're at right now. That could have been the whole thing. I mean, if it makes sense to you.
To go back to sleep and see that, I'll be like, okay, let's sleep on that now.
Yeah, that will be, and I'd love to hear from you too, the idea of, and you said these are recurring dreams. I did want to touch on that before I let you go or get you out of here. So you have frequent flying dreams or falling dreams, as you say. Not many like this one specifically. Was this kind of unique among the pattern, or are a lot of your flying dreams typically about ascending?
A lot of I don't think there is a pattern in which I haven't flown yet in my dreams.
Okay.
So if there is a way or a direction or a way to fly, I think there have been throughout the years, it looks like I process everything through flying in a nutshell.
Maybe so.
And so flying in different directions, and the space-related flying probably has to do more. It has started after I started meditating, I think.
Interesting.
Prior to me meditating, prior to any meditation practices, the dreams were more, I should say, tied to this space and time, flying above cities and above oceans, or a ton of flying above oceans. Yeah, so it's interesting because I think when my neural receptors have shifted, to the new experiences through meditation, my dream receptors have shifted to accommodate to fly off the planet.
Yeah, that made perfect sense to me. And that's so that's why I wanted to look at this. Like, is this really like a typical kind of recurring dream for you? Because there's many different layers of typical. There's the category of flying dreams itself. That's a whole thing that people experience a million ways. Then there's how you've experienced it. Then it's how that experience has changed over time for you. And now it's become something else. And you brought it to mind of that. It seemed to change around the time I picked up meditation, and how that's allowed you to let go of the earthly a little bit more and say, well, what's beyond that? What's more important than that? Because there's got to be something. This ain't doing it. Very interesting.
And Benjamin, the really cool thing that just occurred to me.
Mm.
So I was born in Ukraine when it was still a part of the Soviet Union. And in the Soviet Union, you could not leave the country because you had to have an exit visa. You know, so in US, if you want to travel, some countries welcome you with an American passport. For some, you have to have an entry visa.
Mm.
But in the Soviet Union, you couldn't leave the border without the exit visa,
You get
and nobody
permission to
got
leave.
exit
Yeah.
visas. Yeah, you had no permission to leave. And more than that, everybody had a passport, and a stamp in the passport dictated where you lived within the country. So you couldn't leave a city. You couldn't move from a city to a
Wow.
city. It
Yeah.
was called Propiska. Propiska was the place of residency that was localized down to a city and to a village and was stamped in your passport.
Wow.
Um,
I wish more people knew
and
that kind of stuff. That's who wants to live that way? God, that's
I
awful.
know, I know. And so for me, I think once again, another gift of this conversation is that I think that desire to fly away and get free, because my brain could not conceptualize that there's any other way to get out of that restriction. Because I go back to when I had flying dreams, and as long as I remembered dreams, they were flying dreams. And
Yeah.
so it was in the beginning getting out. You know, like if I had to look at the progression, it was getting out. And then it was exploring. And then it was expanding. And so now it's soaring and reconnecting. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
And flying dreams, I mean, there's a lot of theories about why they happen, but we look at birds as having a tremendous amount of freedom. They, anytime they want, just gone right up in the sky. And we're stuck here on the ground. So it's a very kind of ancient human connection with that concept of flight equals freedom, so to speak. And
wow.
that might be different with you or not, but that's one of those common collective unconscious type of things across cultures. Yeah, so very reasonable to have that as an icon. Some people dig to freedom. Very an interesting connect, very more rare, but some people consider that of like tunneling away. It's more of a, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to talk to specific people and have them say more about that, why that is. But birds is or flying is the most common one. So, well, I know you're a little tight on time today. So I wanted to make sure, do you feel like we've gotten pretty good answer, or were there a couple elements you're like, well, wait, let me ask you about this. I'm open to more questions, or we can wrap it up either way.
How did you end up doing what you're doing?
Oh, well, actually, I have a video on that. I should like bloop, put it up there. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe that'll bloop. Maybe it'll be there. But long story short, I've always had a fascination with people telling me their dreams because I don't remember mine much. And I'm like, I mean, I kind of know what that feels like, but I wish I could tell you a story about my dreams. There's like literally less than, I can count them all in one hand that I can remember throughout my life and actually give you the full story beginning to end like you did. And it was back in college. Yeah, that as a part of my history and systems of psychology class, they said, okay, now we're going to talk about Freud and Jung and dream interpretation. So pick a dream of yours, get one from a relative, analyze it in the style of Freud, in the style of Jung, and bring them back and share with the class or turn it in. That's your homework, do your thing. So I did. And the teacher was like, these are good. These are really good. It was two of my own dreams that had happened recently that I happened to remember. And so ever since then, I'll be like, maybe I got a knack for this. And then, yeah, about a couple of years ago, I'm like, I'm going to try and start a YouTube channel and see if I can do this thing for real. Cause I always knew I had a little bit of a talent for it, but I think I've actually gotten better as I've been practicing. I hope I've gotten better as I practice. Otherwise it's not working out like it should.
No, it's been wonderful. This has been a gorgeous journey. I come with no expectations to any podcast interview or exchange. I just come for a miracle, and this has been plenty miraculous.
That's fantastic. I can honestly say I don't think too many people walk away dissatisfied, even if we don't get a 110% understanding of everything. But the process should be fun. You should walk away with some insight about yourself and what you've been through and why those images might be important to you. And then, ideally with recurring dreams, they will change as yours did, as you gain understanding and move through different periods of your life. You don't have the same thoughts anymore. You don't have the same need to see the same images anymore. So I very much appreciate that. I'm very awkward, and I would tell people don't applaud, just throw money, because the praise makes me feel very awkward. But I appreciate it. I do.
Well, I don't mean to make you feel awkward, but I appreciated the
that's not your
experience.
fault either. That's just me. That's my introversion. Like I'm the introvert who hides in a cave and puts his face on the internet. I'm a walking contradiction. I'm an odd duck, as I say.
I don't think anybody is not an odd duck, but you get to own it. So
right, exactly.
If you find one person that you don't think is odd, let me know them.
That's
please.
True.
You just don't know them close enough.
That's the facade too. A lot of us put on this appearance of normalcy, thinking we're supposed to act normal. No, what's normal? What is normal? Anyway, okay.
Odd is normal.
Odd is normal. There you go. Odd is even. Okay, I'm going to say at the very end here, we're going to say thank you one more time to our friend Victoria Rader from Virginia, outside DC, possibility coach, transformational speaker, and founder of You Too Shine. Links in the description below. For my part, would you please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. Get a t-shirt, coffee mug. 14, soon to be 15, currently available works of historical dream literature available on Amazon. Also links in the description. And that's about it. Victoria, thanks again.
Thank you so much. This was fantastic. I had a great time.
Wonderful. And everybody else, thanks for listening.